Welcome everyone to the final go-to session of the month. Yay! There's additional good news. This should probably be one of the shorter sessions of the month. I don't have as much to go over. It's mostly just a review of some advice to keep in mind when you're working on your final projects, and then a quick overview of what you need to include for your final project. Um, okay, so let's get rolling. Okay, so we're going to talk about the final project, right? You have most of this week clear just to work on the actual multimedia public service announcement. Aside from this go-to quiz and making sure that you're completing the month-long McGraw-Hill Learn Smart Achieve module, basically the entire week is free, and it's that way by design. Okay, so let me begin by talking about this concept of editing versus revising. Who wants to show off and either explain in the chat or out loud, like what the difference is? Like when you see the word editing, what does that bring to mind versus revising? You can also rely on the pictures to help you out. It sort of gives you a hint because this is a pretty important distinction that I want to make because it really does have a direct impact on what you're going to be doing this week with your final projects. So you don't have to type in full sentences, but editing, what does that mean? Pasha says taking out and adding things. I'm not sure if you're asking if you're talking about editing or revising there. Michael says kind of the same thing. Editing is to add and take away. Yeah, I think that's on the right track. I think I get the sense of what you mean by that, right? It's kind of like fixing the small stuff, maybe. Donald says editing could be deleting, while revising could be changing what you are keeping. Okay. Yeah, I think you're all on the right track. May says something that's a little bit more precise. Maybe editing is making corrections. Yeah, editing is like the small stuff, right? Let's say you had to revise your essay. You would take the feedback that you received, either from me or from your peers, hopefully from everybody, and you would make changes to your essay. But if you're only making small changes, like you're inserting a comma here, fixing a misspelling there. That's sort of editing stuff, right? You're cleaning things up, you're polishing things. Revising, which I'm trying to capture here on the right with this picture here that looks kind of like the eye of Sauron. Uh, that should give you a hint what revising means. Revising is much, much bigger. You can see that the word vision is kind of contained in that word, right? So revising means to revision. And this is crucial here because that's what I'm asking you to do. Okay. You have to revise or revision your material. Why is this crucial? Because some of you may have made moves in your essay that worked great on the page, but they may not translate as well to whatever format you've chosen to work on for your actual multimedia public service announcement. For instance, maybe your essay began with a great opening move where, I don't know, you created like a hypothetical scenario, a sort of imagine this type scene. Maybe on the page it's awesome, but maybe it's not going to work for your comic, right? Maybe the comic means that you need to see things all anew again. Um, Maybe there's no way to really communicate that if you're using the audio format, the purely audio format, right? The podcast. Um, so really the challenge here, and this is why I use this picture as well, the new house being built, is that you're essentially building a new structure. Okay. The essay was one structure. And I think it was useful because it really allows you to explore your topic, to explain it in detail using words on the page. But for the actual public service announcement, it's an exercise in selection, it's an exercise in conciseness, and it's also an exercise in rethinking your material completely. Um, and I think I talked about this a little bit last week, right? I'm going to sit down when I look at your final projects and just pretend like I don't know you. I don't know Pasha or Kelsey or Michael or May. I'm going to pretend that, hey, here's a video, here's a comic, here's a podcast, I forget what some of the other options are, or here's a song. I don't know you. I don't know your topic. I don't know that you're a full sales student. All I know is that I'm watching this thing, just in the same way that I might flip through the channels and come across a public service announcement, or just like I might be driving in the car scanning the radio stations and I come across a PSA. Remember I called it the stranger test last week, that I should be able to pull any stranger off the street. They should be able to look at your project and not feel lost, not be confused about the message. And that requires revisioning your material. So you'll have to think about like what strategy will work best given the format that you've chosen. It will also, as I said, be an exercise in conciseness because you won't be able to fit in everything that you included in your essay. I mean, your essay might be packed with tons of great information, but you won't be able to use all of it because there are either time or length requirements, right? The video and the audio project should be 1 to 3 minutes. I forget how long the song or jingle is supposed to be. I think it's around that length as well. I think it might be 2 to 5 minutes or something like that. Okay, so you have limited time and space to sort of make your point. Just as well, think of real world public service announcements. You're not really going to find one that's much longer than 2 or 3 minutes. So that means that, yeah, this will be an exercise in you really choosing your best moments and deciding what's the most powerful way to communicate that. And sadly, I don't have really specific advice to give on how to do that. Um, I can give general piece of advice like I did last week, where I said, the people who choose the audio option, sometimes they create something straightforward, so it's more like a straightforward commercial that you would hear, for example, on the radio. Other people create sort of a mock interview format. Some people imitate a radio style show format. The same thing with videos, right? There are people who deliver it very, very straightforward, but there's no problem with that. Sometimes it's tight, it's focused. What appears on the screen is interesting or helpful, and other people find other ways to communicate that information. So part of your task is really to kind of develop a strategy that's going to work for your chosen format, and that means revisioning your material. Okay. So quiz question number 1. Basically, spit back what I just said. What is the difference between editing and revising, and how is this difference important for the final PSA project? Okay, so we've talked about a bit about it. I kind of got on my soapbox and preached a little bit, but in essence, put in your own words kind of what we just went over. Why is it important to understand this difference? Let me take a sip from my Diet Coke. Because I actually think I do a pretty good case. I make a pretty good case for this. I don't get too many students doing what they did at the very beginning when I first started teaching this lesson over a year ago, which is, people just reading their essays out loud and calling that an audio piece, or people literally just turning on their laptop cameras, speaking for a minute or two, and then calling that a video. Okay, so people I think, are getting the message pretty clearly. This requires revisioning, and it really is. I mean, it may not seem fun when you're doing it, but it really ends up being a valuable experience because Full Sail students are creative. Full Sail students used to complain that English class here was too text-based, too essay-based, and we've tried to adapt things, still keeping in mind solid writing principles about having a topic, having a message, having a clear audience, all that stuff that is crucial to any piece of writing. But here you get to do it in this sort of creative format. And yeah, Full Sail students, really ambitious, really talented. So most of you can create a video or an audio piece or a comic, what have you. Okay, moving forward. Hope everybody jotted down quiz question number 1. Peer feedback. Okay, you got a lot. This is a good connection, right? We just got done with peer review. So hopefully most of you got feedback on your essays. I know that there are always a couple people who don't get feedback, even though I mentioned in the go-to session, and it's listed on the assignment sheet that people should seek out those students who have not yet received feedback. But hopefully most of you got feedback. Donald said that he didn't, but at the very least you got feedback from me, right? I mean, the goal here was to get feedback from more people than just me, because even though I think I give valuable feedback, your classmates notice things that I don't. But consider all the feedback that you receive from me, from your classmates, from whomever, right? And now it's your time to decide what makes sense and what doesn't. Maybe one of your classmates made a brilliant point, but unfortunately it won't help very much when it comes to your multimedia piece. It would have been awesome, like if you were revising your essay, but maybe it doesn't help you that much in terms of the PSA. Or maybe it is they were trying their best to give you helpful advice, but you just disagree with it. So this is your chance to sort of sort through my comments, your classmates' comments, decide what works, decide what doesn't, and really, again, keeping this idea of revisioning in mind, using the advice to create the best multimedia piece you can make, okay? So pay attention to that feedback that you received. Quiz question number 2. See, I told you this session moves fast. We're halfway through the quiz questions. I want you to brainstorm here, okay? I want you to start thinking about this. How will the delivery of your topic, okay, how will it need to change from essay to multimedia PSA? So I want you to start thinking about these things now. Like, what are the sorts of things that your essay did that will need to change when you move to the new format? What will need to be eliminated or what will need to be added? Okay. I'm just giving people a second or two to either write down the question or take a screenshot. But there's question number two. So question number one was more global, like why is the importance between editing and revising important, and uh, in terms of the PSA project. And question number two is really more specifically about your project, your topic. How will it need to change from essay to multimedia public service announcement? Okay, moving on. Moving on. Okay, you thought we were done with APA, right? You thought we were done with that. We'll never have to see it again, never have to talk about it again, but we're not quite finished with it. There is one final thing I need to cover, which is that some of you might be using images or music, and these materials need to be cited. I need to remind people that, again, only allowable images and music can be used. So, no copyrighted material. Okay, so I don't want to hear um, Beyonce song playing in the background of your video. Um, all images should come from someplace that's allowable. Like, I should see a copyright symbol that says some rights reserved, not all rights reserved. Um, but if you do use outside images or music, they still need to be cited. So I'm going to cover how to do that. But first, and this will play a role in one of the quiz questions. Don't know why give that hint in advance, but you might make note of these three things. The general importance of citation. First, it's a requirement for this course. Okay, and not even just for this course, it's also a Full Sail thing. I think I might have said this last week too, but because all of you are heading into industries where you won't be able to just use things at will and not give credit for them, or give credit for things that, okay, you're giving credit, but still you shouldn't be using it because it's fully copyrighted and didn't get permission from the copyright holder. Because all of you are entering industries like this, Full Sail really puts emphasis on this. Okay, so we're not using anything that's not allowable, and even those things that are allowable, we're still giving full credit for it because it's a requirement for this course. But other things, yeah, you need to give credit to those who have helped you create your project. I think last week I gave the example of, you're watching a news program, and always at the end there's credits that appear. Video courtesy of so and so. Music courtesy of so and so. I think I used ESPN as an example last week, right? You're watching Sports Center, and at the end there was always a full list of giving credit for the various video clips that appeared in that news segment. So you need to do the same thing. You have to follow APA format, of course, but you have to give credit. And finally, others might find your sources useful. I know in this class you may not be scouring each other's references for usefulness, but sometimes I do read your sources just out of interest. It happened the other day. I was giving feedback to someone's work, and I actually read through through two of his referenced articles just because I found them interesting. So I mean, that's another reason, right? That others may find your information useful. So those are the three biggies. It's a requirement. You need to give credit to those who have helped, and others might find your materials helpful. That may show up in a quiz question, which is a fancy way of saying it will appear in a quiz question. Okay, citing music. Take a screenshot if you want, but it might be more useful just to follow along with the steps I'm going to show you. Up here is kind of the technical stuff of what you need to do. This is found in your McGraw-Hill readings. I think it's also included probably on the Project APA info site that I've mentioned a couple times, but it should definitely be in your McGraw-Hill stuff. But basically, let's look at this example here, okay? Because the example is more useful. You'll see that the format really isn't any different than what you've been working on all month. This is why it's important to know how to do APA without the help of citation generators, just so you understand the information that you're putting on the page. So we don't have a literal author in this case, but we do have a composer, and we're still following the same format we always do: last name, complete with first initial. We have a year of publication we put in parentheses. We have a title of the track. Okay, in this case, it's called Letting Loose. We don't have like a publication title in the traditional sense, like it came from Forbes or came from the New York Times, but it appeared on an album, so we put the album in italics. The only probably new twist here is that in brackets we identify what type of media it is, and this is just because if we don't identify it as a recording, people might not know what letting loose is. They might think it's an article, they might think it's some other, they might think it's a photograph, they might think it's a variety of things. So we just identify what it is. Oops, hold on. So let me show how to do this in real time, okay? Because a lot of you will probably be using music tracks from like the Westar Music Database, which I showed briefly last time. It's found in the Full Sail Library databases. So I'm going to go there real quickly right now. Right, so I'm going to go to the research databases. You all know how to do this because you had to do this for your essays anyway. But if we scroll down, right there it is, Westar Music. You get a login and a password to use. I think I mentioned this last time. Normally you'd pay $15 to $60 for these tracks, but as a Full Sail student, you get them for free. I'm going to log in just in case I can't access the full range of information without logging in first. Okay, and as I think I joked before, actual people have composed this music, but typically they're organized by album. They have corny titles like Dance, Sunlight and Shadow, or Rock, Pride of Place, or On the Easy Side. Okay, so it's sort of given those elevator music type titles. But if we go into one of the albums, I will go into On the Easy Side. You can see we have individual tracks like Freedom of the Road, and you can listen to a sample of the track, and then you just complete the checkout process. You won't be charged as a Full Sail student. And I believe it downloads as an MP3 file, and then you can, drag it in to your project and do what you want with it. But to get information on the specific track, I believe, to see they change things around. Oh, I think I can click on the track itself, maybe? Yeah. And look, I get the full information. Right here are the composers, Martin Hain and Marco Riccardi. The album has a title, Rock on the Easy Side. It has a publisher, Westar Music. It basically has all the information I need to go create my APA reference. And it even has a date, right? 2014. So if I go back to my PowerPoint presentation, that's essentially what I did here, okay? This is for a different track, but it's the same thing, okay? I got all this information from Westar Music Database. If you're using music from another source, you probably should run it by me first. If you think you've found some sort of Creative Commons source that's allowing music tracks to be shared, you better run it by me first so I can check it out. I really don't want to see it. It always happens. No matter how loudly I say it, every month I see someone using a copyrighted track. Sometimes they think, oh, it's just, an unknown Christian rock band that doesn't sell many records. But still, I go in and I find that information is that song is copyrighted. So no copyrighted stuff. And mostly, by the way, we're just trying to find music that acts as background for the most part. So how crucial is it to use copyrighted music instead of sort of generic tracks? Let's see. I'm kind of missing on what people have said in the chat. Oh, okay, just people talking to one another. Okay, so that's how you cite music, right? Same logic that you would use for citing articles. You just adapt it for the music track. Same thing for citing images. Okay, same logic. Up here, there's kind of the format you need to follow. But again, it's probably more useful to look at the example. We don't have a literal author, but we have the name of the person who took the photo. Right? So last name, first initial, put a year in parentheses if it's available. If the photograph has a title, put that title. Again, in brackets, we'll put the media type, photograph, so we know what type of file or what type of media form this is. And here, because there's usually not an actual publication associated with it, we just put a retrieve line, okay? And I'm not too picky. If you want to just put retrieve from and then put the URL, that's fine. If you want to put the specific date you took it, that's fine as well. But basically, I need the author, year, name of the thing, and then a retrieve from line. So let's see how that works in real time. Last week, I sort of showed you quickly compfight.com. This is a Flickr search tool. I'm telling you that if you do need to rely on some outside images to help round out your project, it should be coming from either compfight.com. Okay, I'm going to type that in the chat. Or it should be coming from the AP Images database, right? if you took TGL, you should remember where this is. If we go to the library and we go to research databases, one of the first selections that comes up is the AP Images collection. Okay, so you can grab images from here, or you can grab them from ComFite. ComFite is probably a little bit better when you just need a general picture to communicate something. AP Images is probably a little bit better when you need a specific photo, let's say of someone who's in the news. You probably won't get a lot of results if you type in a celebrity name into ComFite. I mean, you might get some, but if you're looking for something very, very specific that was in the news, you probably won't find it in ComFite. But it's great for looking for things like kittens. Not sure why any of you would need kittens in your project, but let's. Okay, and as I mentioned last time, anything above the dotted line, just ignore. Okay, you have to pay for that stuff. But anything below the dotted lines, make sure. Let me blow this up. Okay, make sure that you have the appropriate thing selected, not any license, because that might actually result in copyrighted material. But as long as we choose Creative Commons or commercial, that will reduce things to stuff that's allowable. Technically, I should be clicking commercial. It's a little bit too difficult to explain, but because Full Sail is technically a for-profit university, we should be using commercial images that are allowable for commercial projects. You're not going to be making money off your projects, but technically the work you handed in is associated with a for-profit university. But okay, oh, so many cute guys to choose from. How about this one? Okay, so up pops a photo. Let's say I love this photo, right? And it passes the allowable test because it's some rights reserved, not all rights reserved. We can choose whatever image size that we want. Typically, anything in this kind of range, the 1,000 pixels or so is appropriate. Things that are ginormous might be too much for you. But here's the important thing. Okay, you can download the file, so I'll just download it for fun. Okay, boom. And there's my picture. I can do whatever I want with it. But here's the thing that's interesting. Normally, you have the full HTML code here, which is what you would need to use to embed in your own website if you were using this photo. But what I'm going to teach you to do is go in here and find the specific URL for the photo. That's the only problem with ComFite is that it's not intuitive to find like basic information on the photo, who took it, when it was taken, etc. But if we go in there and just grab the URL, which I'm doing now, and I'm going to go ahead and copy it and plug it back in, then it will take us to the page of the actual photo. And again, we have all the information we need. You have to hunt for it a little bit, but here we have let me blow this up. Here we have a date, 2006, so we got that. We have someone's name, Eric Newth. Okay, that's the person who took it. Sometimes it's difficult to figure out the title. I'm going to guess that this is his title. This thing here, Chatting is Becoming Well Nigh Impossible. It's kind of a long title for a photo, but I'm guessing that's his photo. And then once we have all that information, we just plug it in. Okay, so that's what I did here, right? Person took the photo, year, name, and again, I could just take that stuff. Where is it? Chatting is Becoming Well Nigh Impossible. Right? Okay, I'd have to fix the indentation issues that just occurred, but okay, you get it. It's the same rules as following APA for citing an article. It's just you're adapting it for the photo. One thing, if you come to a site, sometimes you won't get someone's real name. Sometimes it will just be a moniker. So whatever they use to describe themselves, that's what you'll put in here. So if the author's name is, Hot Mama 97, okay, that's what you'd put in as the author, even though it looks ridiculous. Okay, that's technically the author's name. So use a real name or use whatever online moniker. That's just a fancy word for handle, and put that in there. Okay, but it really is easy. APA seems nitpicky, it seems frustrating, but it's really not that difficult. It's just a matter of following those rules, and you have it in multiple locations. I go over it in the go-to sessions. You have specific McGraw-Hill readings that cover it. You have that APA Basics PowerPoint presentation, although I can't remember if that gets into images or music or not. But it's really just a matter of finding the model and imitating it. Okay, APA really is that easy. Okay, so that's what you have to do with images and music. And if you have any specific questions, just send me a message. If you think you've found something that you believe is allowable, but you're not sure, let me know. If you're not sure how to cite something, if you find something that's just an odd format, and you can't find the rule for it, just let me know and I'll try to help out as best I can. Okay, quiz question number 3. Why is it important to cite? Okay, so I'm literally looking for those 3 things that I listed a couple slides ago. Let me take a sip from my drink. By the way, I hope we don't have anybody from the Northeast in our session tonight. Don't think so. Some of you, I know where you're from. Oh, Neil's in Boston. Wow, O'Neill should get extra credit points or something. Because didn't Boston get hit the hardest? Pasha's from Jersey. Didn't New York escape the worst of it, but Boston just got hit pretty hard? May's from Minnesota. Yeah, that's snow country typically. Okay, so I won't make my jokes about how we're going through a cold spell here in Florida because every day it's in the mid 60s instead of the 70s or 80s. We're struggling. I hate to get off topic, but the first time I moved down here 3 years ago, I thought people were ridiculous because it was like I think the day I moved in was a January and the high was 60 and babies were bundled up and people were in coats and hats and I thought they were ridiculous. But I'll tell you what, after you get used to it down here, it does strike you as cold after a while. Yeah, I think I'll move forward because I think I'm technically doing what is called trolling. I'm teasing people who don't have it so good. But it never gets old. I love to do that with family. I have family up in Chicago. Okay. Yeah. Quiz question number 3. Why is it important to cite? So I'm looking for those 3 things on the slide a couple slides ago, right? I mean, it may not seem fair, but to a certain degree, yes, I have important information in this session, and I want people to digest it and understand it. But to a certain degree, these sessions are also designed to make sure that you're truly watching the quiz and paying attention, and you prove that by sometimes spitting back the information that I've given you. Okay. One final thing to go over, although it's broken down into separate parts. What you need to do for your final project. Okay, because it's more than just creating your public service announcement. And if you just hand in your public service announcement, you're going to lose a lot of points because there's actually more that's required here. So let's go over what you need to do. Oops, you weren't supposed to see that yet. Okay, let's go to the activities page. Here's the final project assignment. So I'm going to go in there. I should have had this set up in advance. Okay, in the description, you get a list of things you need to include, like an APA cover page, a link to your project. Okay, so if you're creating a video, chances are you're going to probably upload the finished project to something like YouTube or Vimeo, and you're going to give me the link. If you're creating something sound-based, whether it's the audio podcast or a song or jingle, that will typically be uploaded to, most people use SoundCloud. I think that's the most convenient thing. But whatever format you use, I just need a link to your project. A copy of your script or lyrics. Again, the only project that really doesn't fall in this category are the ones where all the writing is already contained in the project itself, like the comic. Otherwise, I need a script or lyrics. It's easier to follow along, and it shows me evidence that you were planning. Okay. If you're working from a script, chances are you have a plan in place and that you're following it. When I don't see a script, it's not always the case, but yeah, sometimes it's the projects can be a bit rougher. And then I say things like, "Oh, well, a script would have been beneficial." An APA references page. You're going to take the references that were handed in for your essay. You're going to include them with your final project, okay? Because even if you don't directly cite or quote from them, they're still technically informing your project. So they should be listed. And you'll add to it whatever new pieces you're using. So if you did extra research or no research, great. But put those sources in there. If you used images or music files, make sure that those are included as well. Okay, so there has to be a references page. And a 250-word reflection. And I'm going to open up the assignment sheet real quickly because there are specific parameters for the 250 word reflection. By the way, you have a bunch of things here, and we're going to look at this one in just a second. Final project example. Okay, but the assignment sheet itself, let's take a look at that. And the only thing I want to stress here, because you can read this through on your own, is that, let me blow this up. Number 4 here covers what you need to include in the reflective essay, okay? You basically have to write at least 250 words that answer these questions. You know, what were you expecting from an English composition course? How did your rhetorical situation evolve from week to week? How did your ideas and about understanding of audience evolve as a class? In essence, the questions are asking you to reflect on your progress as a writer during the month. Okay. So your 250 word reflection, you'll basically be answering these questions. Most people do it in essay format, right? They write a couple paragraphs and they make sure that they touch on these questions. But sometimes people skip these questions. They just see, oh, I need to write a reflection, and they write a reflection on their public service announcement, usually like the topic itself. But that's not what's being asked for here. Or they'll write a general reflection about life or something like that. No, the actual things you need to contain in that essay are found here. So don't forget about that, okay? Because you don't want to lose points for doing that. Note, too, that, again, most of these questions are about you and your progress as a writer during the month. This is not the place to sort of criticize the class or what you don't like about it. I mean, that's fine too, but you have a separate activity for that, right? If I go back to the activities page, at the very end, you'll see that there's something called the student course evaluation. And things are running slow right now. Right down here. Okay, that's where you get to talk about what about the course itself. So the reflection really isn't the place for that. But here, okay, so let's take a look at this and kind of through an example. This document, by the way, is one of your assets. It's saved as a PDF, so you can open it up and look at it. But here's an example of what sort of needs to be handed in. This is just all blank. Your project needs to be in APA format. So if you got all this right with your essay, good news. You just have to sort of take that same template and carry it over to the final project. You'll need to change details, like you'll have to give it a new title and all that. But you know, or you could start over from scratch. It's not difficult to create an APA style format for your paper. But if you got it right the first time, just carry that template over if you want. Right. So if you already created a properly formatted cover page, great. You'll have to come up with a new title that reflects the final project, but essentially you're good to go. The second page typically looks something like this. You'll have your title again appear, just as you did with your essay, right? Whatever your essay's title was, it was the first line of the second page centered. Your final project title will go here. And then typically what you get are, your link to the project. So your YouTube link or your Vimeo link or your SoundCloud link will go here. If you're creating a Powtoon itself, once you're finished with the project, has its own link that will take me to your project. Just give me the link. And also, this is important, test your link, okay? Because I don't mean to sound harsh, but I already know. I have like about 50 students. There are probably about 3 or 4 of you I'm going to have to literally contact. Like I'm going to have to call you on the phone saying, I can't get your project. I've messaged you. I've emailed you. Your link isn't working. Please get me a working link. Because if I don't get that in time and when by the time grades are due, then unfortunately I have no choice but to give things a 0. So make sure that your link is actually working. Your script will go here. Okay. If you're creating a comic, you don't need to have a script, but everybody else does. We're not going to get into issues of like how to format a script. Just use common sense, make it the most professional and presentable looking as it can be. If your script is mostly in paragraph format, follow the standard APA conventions for paragraphing, right? So double spaced, first lines of new paragraphs indented. I'm not really obsessed with the format so much of the script. I just want it to be there, but make sure that it's there and that it looks professional and that it's grammatically as perfect as you can make it, that it's proofread carefully. Because some people get a little bit lackadaisical with the script. And to a certain degree, I get it, right? You think that, the script is mostly for my benefit. Who cares if the words are spelled correctly? Who cares? But there is a grade connected to the quality of the script, so make sure that it's in place. On the next page, references. So I've just filled this with generic references. and every so often there's a I've seen cases where students still have these same references on their page. They're just my example references. Uh, your references go here, okay? Not my example references. So the references that you contain in your essay, if you used outside images or music, those go here as well. And here I've given like a good range of different things. Here's a photograph. Here's a sound file. Here's an article, etc. And on the final page, include your reflection. Okay, so you're handing in something that looks like this. It's also your final chance to sort of practice APA and show me that you can do it if you had any issues the first time around. Okay, let's see. Did I miss anything in the chat? Danielle asks, can we upload the file separately with the script, title page, reflection, rather than posting it on the internet? Yeah. I mean, I don't really have a problem with that as long as I can download it. The problem is that sometimes your file sizes can be pretty large, and that can be a pain for you to upload, and it can take me an extra few seconds to download. It doesn't really bother me, but if you're really that uncomfortable with posting to the internet, be aware that things like Vimeo and YouTube, they have settings, so you can always set it to private, um, and then send me the link. Although, how does that work? Do we have any YouTube experts here? If you set it to private and you send me the link, can I watch it? Or I think so, right? It doesn't exclude other people from viewing it. Pasha says, so we include our essays references to the new references page. Yes, Pasha, just carry those over. Because again, technically, even if you're not quoting from those sources or citing in your actual PSA, they're still informing your PSA, so it's important to list them. They helped your understanding of the topic. Okay, good. Someone answered my question. Kelsey says that as long as I get the link, and Michael says the same thing, then I can view it. Okay, that's all that matters. But yeah, Daniel, it's not a big problem. The big thing is I need to get to your project. Um, and I'm more forgiving than a lot of other instructors who get angry when you when when it takes an extra step or two to open your project. So like technically your assignment sheets say like things should be handed in Microsoft Word format, but when I get it submitted to me in Pages, that's fine. The most important thing is that I'm able to actually get to it. Okay, final question, quiz question. True or false? Right? Easy. One word answer. You may Google for images and music, and as long as you properly cite what you've turned up, you have fulfilled your responsibilities as a student and digital citizen. Okay, so true or false? And don't put your answer in the chat for everybody to see. This is not an open book test. Okay, the next slide is just a general question thing, so we'll open up to questions if people have any. Kelsey says if you have a Google account, you technically have a YouTube account. Yeah, that's true too. As a matter of fact, one of the things I love about iMovie is I can just drag in the recording of these sessions right into iMovie, click on the YouTube link, and it just shoots it right to my YouTube account through my Google account. Okay, questions, preguntas, anything that we didn't cover. I think I covered everything. I guess the only thing, okay, and I remember one thing I forgot to include. Some basic advice: make sure that you're producing the most polished project that you can. I think I talked about this last week. I'm most interested in message and audience and how clearly it's coming across, but obviously professionalism counts. So, those of you who are savvy at using software, you probably know how to correct small errors that occur during recording. If not, make sure that you are fixing things. For example, I'm not that tech savvy of a person. I'm pretty good, but I'm not as great as some of you. So when I create either iMovies or audio pieces, like I'll write a script, and my script might have 3 or 4 short paragraphs, and I'll record those paragraphs one at a time, make sure that they're perfect, and then end the recording. I don't try to record everything in one take. Again, people are a bit more tech savvy, know how to just do everything and then fix everything after the fact. But if you don't consider recording things in small chunks, playing it back, making sure it meets your requirements, and then moving on, Because again, whatever tools you're using, if you have your MacBook Pro already, um, things like iMovie and GarageBand are incredibly easy to use because you can literally just then drag in your clips and then edit them together, make them longer, make them shorter, do whatever. But if you're on PC, there are equivalent tools, right? Audacity, I think, is a popular audio tool. Windows Movie Maker, I'm guessing, has functions that are more or less similar to iMovie. Might not be as seamless or as smooth as something like iMovie, but it must be similar. But make sure that you're making it the best project you can make. Again, I'm not looking for like super razzle dazzle high professional quality, but I'm not looking for the opposite either. You just turning on your laptop camera, speaking for a minute and calling that your video, or just reading your essay out loud and calling that your audio piece, or preparing an audio piece, but it's filled with you stumbling and coughing and mispronouncing words or or things like that. Okay, so try to make these the best projects you can possibly make. Okay, any other questions? Pasha says, got it, which is her code for I want out of here. May says, so if it's a hand drawn comic, can the comic be pasted right into the body of the Word doc? Yes, if you can find a way to do so that's clean and easy to read, yeah, that's fine. I would say most people upload it to an image hosting site and then give me that link. But, um, but yeah, if there's a way to do it that's easy for me, um, that's fine. Uh, Someone wants to see the fourth question. There it is. Any other questions, people? People who feel confident with what we've gone over, you're free to take off. Enjoy the rest of your night. And if you do have questions, just let me know. Okay, send me a message. And I'll hang out here for a little bit just to answer things. Daniel says, I'm assuming question number 4 pertains directly to our project. Yes. Actually, it applies to everything. I mean, I can't give the answer, but it's a pretty obvious answer. Like, can you Google for stuff? And as long as you cite it properly, you've done everything you need to do. I'd love to just give the answer, but I can't. Although my joking about it and even the way I read it should already indicate kind of the answer. It's not really a trick question, but it's designed to test people's true and complete knowledge of what it means to be a responsible person who's using materials correctly.